We ring this peace bowl this morning to acknowledge to each other, to the universe, to anyone who's listening, that we hope for peace. In the midst of a week that had lots going on, we also ring this bowl to acknowledge that these lands that we love are the lands of the Yavapai people, the Cuevquepayas, the Tolquepayas, the Yavapai, and the Wipukepas. Together, we're going to think about, talk about, consider with one another, I hope with some reciprocity, which I hope you will give me today, because we need to have your ideas coming. I think sometimes worship feels like a kind of one-way street. I try to not have it feel that way, but especially today, I want you to be really thinking about this big change that is happening in our denomination. And we need fire for this change. So we are going to rise in body or spirit. And the first thing we're going to sing, and this is often kind of an ending song, is the fire of our commitment. Please rise in body or spirit. Beacon bright and clear, guiding hands and hearts and spirits into faith set free from fear. And the fire of commitment sets our minds and whole ablaze when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way. Assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. From the stories of our living rings a song both brave and free, still to witness to the life of liberty. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. Assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. Thank you. You may be seated.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Granite Peak Unitarian Universalist Congregation in Prescott, Arizona. I'm Suki Jones, your worship associate this morning. On this cool winter day, let's all just turn to our neighbor and give them a warm, welcoming smile. We're glad you all joined us, whether in person or in Zoom. Hi, folks there on Zoom. This is the mission statement of our congregation. We are a compassionate spiritual community that celebrates diversity, nurtures the personal and spiritual growth of all ages, shares our gifts, promotes justice for all, and serves the world we live in. Please join us after the service for socializing in small groups in the sanctuary or in Davis Hall. And for those on Zoom, don't forget to join in the breakout rooms. If you are joining us for the first time, please check out our website at prescottuu.org for more information about us. And if you're here in person, at the end of the service, there will be time to introduce yourself if you feel like it and chat with our members and friends. We thank our pianist, Lena Hubin, our choir director, Mary Lou Prince, the choir who's joining us this morning. We look forward to that, and all of our Sunday morning volunteers. Thank you all. If you haven't already, this would be a good time to set your phones on worship mode. I see everybody reaching for their purses and their pockets. Before the service, you've been viewing today's announcements up on the screen, and they'll be back after the service. And you can also read them in the order of service, the Weekly Peak newsletter, on our website, and in Reverend Patty's videos. Sandra Palacios, our Faith Development Coordinator, is teaching ages 5 and older across the street at our Faith Development Building. And you can see the work of some of the kids up on the bulletin board in Davis Hall. We begin our service in the Unitarian Universalist tradition of lighting the chalice. Our chalice lighter this morning is Lydia Garrett. We come together every week, bound not by a creed or a mutual desire to please one God or many gods, yet we are drawn together by a belief that how we are in the world, who we are in the world, matters. We light this chalice together in the knowledge that love, not fear, can change the world. For those present in the sanctuary, please stand and sing. No. I have the wrong thing in my
Oh, good morning, everyone. Wow, it is wonderful to see all of you, and a special welcome to Sally Richards. And you're going to make me cry, Sally, because we're going to miss you so much. Whew. And Sharon Watt, who is here after open heart surgery. Wow. Wow. Thank you. Thank you. We live together in this community, and outside us and around us is this great world. I woke up, we all woke up a week ago to I woke up to messages from my brother who lives in Malaysia, who has a Chinese Malaysian wife, and they were celebrating the Lunar New Year. And then the news came of the Asian Americans who were killed in Los Angeles, who, as they were celebrating that same Lunar New Year. This has been a difficult week. Has it been a hard week for you too? Let us hold that. We heard of a mass shooting just yesterday in where Mary Lou grew up, just a couple of streets over. And Tyre Nichols in Detroit. Memphis, sorry, I had Memphis written down. Everywhere, it seems, these tragedies are happening, and yet we are here. And I am grateful for the energy, for that light of perseverance that brings you out on this day. We seek, as we ring our peace bowl, we seek peace in this world. And as all of us know, we cannot find peace in this world without peace within ourselves. And that is perhaps one of the greatest roles of being in a community such as this, is that hard work in community, not by yourself in the forest. I find peace within rather easy in the forest. But within a community, that struggle for that peace within is the work, I believe, of finding peace on this earth. Yesterday, as I was walking and looking at the trees, they seemed to be saying to me, I am vulnerable too. They were wanting me to feel my vulnerability. I felt that vulnerability of the trees, the need for the water, the need for that snow that is blanketing the earth now. And also that sense that I am vulnerable too, as they are, to the wind and the rain, the lack of rain, that we are in this together. When the sun shines brilliantly through the landscape, and when we are discouraged and the sun seems nowhere in sight, let us be a people who seek peace within, and a people who knows of our vulnerability and our dependence on each other, on those trees, on the mountains, and on this world. Let us rise in body or spirit, and let us sing together when our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and kind, when we see our faces in each other's eyes, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we tell our story from deep inside, and we listen with a loving mind, and we hear our voices in each other's words, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we share the silence of sacred space, and the God of our hearts stirs within, and we feel the power of each other's faith, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy Thank you, thank you. And now let us say our covenant, the covenant of this congregation. Let us say it together. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest for truth its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve others in community. Thus do we covenant together. And now let us listen to the sound of we have our stewardship moment. Let us listen to Sandra Palacios.
Hello, my name is Sandra Palacios, coordinator of the Faith Development and a volunteer at Granite Peak UU congregation. I really enjoy working with the students and volunteer across the street Sundays because I believe in a mission of our beloved community and in the importance of helping our kids to learn. Plant that seed, always, and practice the principles of the UU. For example, I also, before our Sunday morning's lesson, I plan fun and active learning experience. They are coordinated with Reverend Patty themes shared by her on Sunday worship. Like for instance, one Sunday she did Living in the Land of Great Spirits, and it was about indigenous people. So we got to do this art form, and we ate fried bread. So it came. This is our culture. This is not all, because some they take home. We did Ojo de Dios, Sikuri, and Nahuatl language. We also did Rosh Hashanah. We had apples and honey, and we did a little pastry. So it's not done, but they did it. Kwanzaa. This was very interesting. Kwanzaa. The kids were able to distinguish the 7 principles and also compare them to the UU. 7 principles. And we had cornbread, unity, community, economics. So they actually absorbed something of the 7 principles. Also, we did Veterans Day, Mona Bella Michael, the Poppy Lady. So they did that. Now we're moving on here to the New Year. Of course, this was this Sunday, the New Year. Hello, it's my year, the year of the rabbit. And here we are. We were looking at each other's year, explaining and seeing if it corresponds to their character. So it was awesome having that experience. Okay, at the end, and we also did lanterns. So the kids were able to do lanterns and have fried rice and fortune cookies, and we experienced chopsticks. Also, as you said, this is a great Christmas lesson. It's a little offshoot, but we did the study of the poinsettia. And basically they learned where the poinsettia came. By who? By the Aztecs, by the Mexican. And it's called, in my country, in Mexico, it's called La Flor de Nochebuena. And of course, somebody brought it here to the United States, and they called it, from his name, poinsettia. So the kids did the poinsettia, and I got to keep them. They got to take them home. So basically, it's a very diverse thing that we try to do, different cultures, and knowing through diversity, we all basically come together. We're the same. So I would like to thank you, gratitud, for allowing me to experience this with the children, and for supporting the faith development through your worship and pledge, your generosity, facilitating learning, fun, friendship, and character development in Granite Peak Children each Sunday. Gracias, gratitud.
Some wonderful stuff is going on next door. Wonderful, engaged children. So now we will listen to the sound of our bowl again and gather our hearts, knowing each of us each time brings joys and sorrows to this place of community. Let us breathe together as we did at the beginning and feel or remember the feeling of this earth under our feet, this earth that gives us so much joy. We gather today holding especially Sally Richards and the loss of her Bill, who we will celebrate today at 2 p.m. And we have to say goodbye to her at the same time, which I don't like at all, but my opinion didn't matter. We also mourn the loss, as we do actually each week. I imagine you too in your hearts, the loss to so many from gun violence, and then police violence this week. And also the life I want to lift up of a young man, Tortuguita, an indigenous Venezuelan who was also queer and non-binary, who died protecting the Wilani forest in Georgia. We hold the caregivers, Kathleen Schaefer, Karen Hagberg, and many others, and those they care for. We hold Sharon Watt, who is with us. We hold Dee Hams, who is going through a transition in her living situation, is now at Las Fuentes and would love visits. We hold Tyre Nichols and his family and friends. I wonder, who are the people on your hearts and minds? Please say the names and I will repeat them into the microphone for all to hear. And those of you who are on Zoom, if you would like to share any names on the chat. Margie Strasser, thank you. Phyllis Laughlin. Oh, is Phyllis here? I finally get to meet you. We've just been writing back and forth. Yes. Marcia Awad. And Frank Beeson, who is right before me. Let us hold him. And Nancy as well. Karen Schultz. Patricia Simpson. Thank you, Dixie. Carrie Kravish. I will ring this bell to begin a time of meditation and silence, during which time I invite you to come and put stones, or there are marble-like glass pieces, into our bowl for any joys and sorrows that you have in your heart. We also hold the many people connected with suicide. We had a special training this week in our Davis Hall, and I know all of you who participated have felt as I have that accompaniment after that of the people we have lost. Let us hold them. Now I invite you into a spirit of meditation and prayer. Spirit of life, we are here, breathing together, remembering the beauty of the light through the trees, and acknowledging the suffering in this world. May we each find our place in bringing more justice and in relieving the suffering around us. May we reach out to those who are in need. May we open our hearts to connection with the humans and the natural world around us. We ask a special blessing on Sally Richards as she leaves our community, that our love will be around her like a cloak, that as she begins again, that she will feel how much she is loved. Amen, and may it be so. And now let us sing together, walking with you. Walking with you, walking with you is my prayer.
Now, as the offering is collected, please join in this ritual of giving so that we may continue to have a place that strengthens and challenges us in these times. This haven, this refuge, this place of worship, and wonder exists because we make it so with our contributions, the gifts of our time, our skills, our food, our love, our laughter, and our money. We also give back to the greater community through our seeds of support. This month's recipient is the Launchpad. Their mission is to incite teen confidence and empowerment by providing teens in Yavapai County with educational and social opportunities that encourage learning, active community involvement, and the development of skills to become successful, empowered, contributing members of society. Please read more about them in your order of service. To give online, the link is available in the chat, or you can also go to our website. So now please enjoy our offertory music. We acknowledge the generosity of spirit expressed through this offering. What is given in love is received in gratitude. Blessed be.
In 1958, when Eleanor Roosevelt was 74 years old, she was asked to teach a workshop that would aid the civil rights movement at the Highlander School in rural Tennessee. The KKK put a $25,000 bounty on her head. There was a lot you could buy for $25,000 in 1958. The FBI said to Mrs. Roosevelt that she was on her own. We can't protect you. I have a commitment, Eleanor responded. A 71-year-old woman picked her up at the Nashville airport, and together they drove through the forests and hills, a loaded pistol between them. This is Eleanor's midnight ride.
I think Eleanor would approve what I would love to do right now. Could everyone please rise in body or spirit and just shake their... We've just been on that, in that car with Eleanor and her 71-year-old friend and that loaded pistol. Ooh. Okay, thank you. Oh, that felt good. As Unitarian Universalists, we are sharing a historic moment, as Eleanor and her friend were sharing in that car. We are at the brink of big change. Today, I'm going to try to bring you some understanding of the changes that are being proposed. And if you want to go farther, we're going to be talking about it after the service in here. And we have a class of faith during our time of faith development, which is Wednesday at 2 p.m. We have somebody who's been studying this who can answer lots of questions. And then in the summer, we are planning from June 22nd to 25th, we're planning to have our Unitarian Universalist General Assembly in Prescott. We're going to be streaming things. We're going to be watching workshops together, because usually we have 2 or 3 people go. And by the time the church year starts in September, nobody really remembers what happened. And I would love for all of you to have that energy without spending $1,000, which it generally costs to go. I'm wondering what your conversion story is. Those of you who think of yourselves as Unitarian Universalists. I think we have lots of different stories of why we have come to these congregations and why we have stayed. And they are quite different from the stories I've heard from my missionary family members when I was growing up. They're quite different. I wonder what your story is. I'd love for you to share your stories, or if it's not a conversion story, why you came to this place. And I know some of you, because this is a Unitarian Universalist congregation, object to the word conversion. But I have to tell you mine. When I was a high school student in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, there was a beautiful old Unitarian Universalist building there. And everyone in my family thought it was super weird. It's like, it's not a Christian place. It's kind of a weird place. And it was a little suspect. It was that suspect, beautiful building. And I remember feeling a lot of curiosity. It was kind of one of those forbidden places, like a casino or something like that. And then later, Mary Lou went to the Santa Monica Unitarian Universalist congregation. I'm not sure when it was. Was it in 95 when she went to Los Angeles visiting her family there? And she saw all of the symbols, like the ones I have on my stole today, that are the symbols of different religions, that is kind of a visual of the very true fact that we as Unitarian Universalists feel that we gather our wisdom not from one source, but from many, many sources. And by then we were living in Japan. We were avidly studying faiths of the world. And we thought if we ever go back to a faith community, we could only imagine one that was big enough for the beliefs, all of these faiths of the world. And then there was that day. It was a rainy day. And I walked to the Unitarian Universalist Church in Pittsburgh. I won't tell you how and why I was in Pittsburgh. It's a very long story. But I read the card that often we have them in our entryway that had the principles and sources on it. And I also noticed the rainbow flag. I noticed the welcoming words. But it was the principles that got me. I felt some kind of movement in my heart. I felt somehow that this was my home, that I belonged here. These are the principles. We have them written around us in this sanctuary, but the ones that are in beige are really difficult to see by now. But Chris Hawthorne kindly made this easier. But let me read them to you. There are 7 principles which Unitarian Universalist congregations affirm and promote. The inherent worth and dignity of every person. Justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. Acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations. a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, the right of conscience, and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and the society at large. The goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. And then my favorite, which is behind me, respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. Our principles. So when I heard that we're moving away from these principles and sources that were what brought me here, I wasn't happy. For one thing, it's pretty difficult to explain Unitarian Universalism to people, and I could always talk about the principles. And I wondered, what am I going to say to people now? But Susan Frederick Gray wrote to all of us this week. I don't know how many of you got the email, but she talked about how there has been change all along. She talked about changes that happened in 1985 that changed the language that was used, mainly to support women in ministry and eliminate sexist language from bylaws, hymns, and from Article 2, which is where the principles are, that was passed in 1961. And those changes didn't just address gender, they made significant language changes that reflected the times. Some of you probably remember the changes that were happening in the 70s and 80s to change language. And I remember my father being very upset. Do you remember those changes? Or maybe you read about them in history books. Anyway, finally now we actually have the first, Susan Frederick Gray is our first female president of the UUA. Before her, they were all men. But then she, in 2015, 16, other things started to change. So we had the women's movement that made change in the language. And then in 2015 and 16, we had a big shift. We had the emergence of Black Lives Matter. We had the election of Donald Trump. We had ways that we started feeling like maybe these principles need to be redone to expand, to express the world as we know it now. I also think what they were asking us is they were asking us not to just affirm principles. They were asking us to take a step farther. They were asking us to think about what we were going to do. Because it's one thing for us to gather together as a community and say, I affirm this. But if we say, I covenant to uphold that interdependent web of life, I covenant to do things in my life to live out these principles, then there is a big, big change. So let us look now at the image that came out of this, that we will be putting here somewhere. The image, for those of you who may not be able to see it, this image is of a chalice that has an overlay of the word love over the flame. And there are 6 outstretched arms that create a circle around each of the core values that form a kind of 6-petal flower shape. Each arm is a different color, and clockwise they are interdependence, which is orange, equity, which is red, transformation, which is purple, pluralism, which is dark blue, generosity, which is teal, and justice, which is yellow. And now I would love my readers to come forth, and they're going to read what each of these values represents. And I want you to have a spirit of openness, I am going to ring the bell and let us move into a kind of a listening time. So we start with interdependence.
We honor the interdependence web of all existence. We covenant to cherish Earth and all beings by creating and nurturing relationships of care and respect. With humility and reverence, we acknowledge our place in the great web of life, and we work to repair harm and damaged relationships.
Pluralism. We celebrate that we are all sacred beings, diverse in culture, experience, and theology. We covenant to learn from one another in our free and responsible search for truth and meaning. We embrace our differences and commonalities with love, curiosity, and respect.
Justice. We work to be diverse, multicultural, beloved communities where all thrive. We covenant to dismantle racism and all forms of systemic oppression. We support the use of inclusive, democratic processes to make decisions.
We adapt to the changing world. We covenant to collectively transform and grow spiritually and ethically. Openness to change is fundamental to our Unitarian and Universalist heritage, never complete and never perfect.
Generosity. We cultivate a spirit of gratitude and hope. We covenant to freely and compassionately share our faith, presence, and resources. Our generosity connects us to one another in relationships of interdependence and mutuality.
Equity. We declare that every person has the right to flourish with inherent dignity and worthiness. We covenant to use our time, wisdom, attention, and money to build and sustain fully accessible and inclusive communities.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, here's the reciprocal part. Any words that are coming up for you out there as you listen to this, or out there in Zoom land, where so many of us lived for several years, it felt like. I'm going to give you handouts at the end. I knew if I gave you handouts now, you would be sitting there looking at them. So I'm waiting to give you handouts, but you will be able, you don't have to memorize them from what you just heard. But any reactions or comments you would like to give at this time? Too wordy, okay. The motivation came, I think, to want to make us have a more active sense of what we do together. So instead of affirming, like I said before, instead of affirming, we're covenanting to do. For example, when we have transformation, then we say we covenant to collectively transform. That's a big one. Yes. Huh. You'd have to answer that yourself, Fred. Yep. Maybe it is. I don't know. Yes, Fred. Yes. Okay. So Fred is saying that affirming feels like we're sending that out. Covenanting is going within, and he prefers the affirm. Yes. Oh, I'm trying to give them back. Yes. But one comment I didn't hear, I didn't give back was Fred's. But Fred, can you say it again? He wonders if covenant gives us more slack than affirming. Huh. Covenant is like those marriage ceremonies. That doesn't give you a lot of slack. And the 10 Commandments don't give you any slack. I'm repeating what he's saying. And Bobby said it was too wordy. Did you hear that one? Yes. It's more of a challenge to us. Okay. So, and Mary Steenhoek is saying that affirming is just saying, where covenanting is acting. And Annette, you're. Okay. Yeah. Just a moment. I used to work as an interpreter and I always had to do this. And I'm trying to remember, what did she? Okay, so Annette was basically saying that what the new version is too wordy. And I could have her tell you after the service because it was too much for me to be able to repeat. Sorry, Annette. Yes. Bonnie. And then Lydia. It was written by a committee. Yes. Lydia, and then Leslie, and then affirm to Lydia has always meant I promise. Leslie. Yes, I agree with, yes. Leslie was saying that this way makes it a little more difficult to explain to others. And there was, wait, Deanne? Oh yes, for the light, thank you. Yes, Deanne has mixed feelings, but she likes the visual. And Kelsey, who is on Zoom, wonders where the eighth principle goes then. And I think that you should ask the expert on Wednesday, but it's my understanding that the eighth principle is integrated into this. Fred. Yes. Yeah. So the people who were on who created the eighth principle were on this committee that created these. Okay. Yes, Suki. No, yes, yes. So this has not been adopted, just a second. This has not been adopted yet, which is why in the title of my sermon, I said, this is a chance to get involved in this process, unlike the religion I grew up in, where, like the Ten Commandments, we received it and we had to deal with it. We are able to talk about it. And if you feel really strongly, you can be a delegate and stand up at General Assembly and give your opinion. So it has not been adopted. There will be a vote, I believe, this year to just whether we want to even have a vote. Isn't that right? This is very Unitarian Universalist. Those of you who are here for the first time, do not be discouraged by it. So, okay. And, okay. So I want to just, somebody, yes, yes, Rick. Yes. Yes, Rick is talking about that this makes it more complex. And is that all right, just to say that? Okay. And Mary, is it Mary? Yes. So, yeah. So Mary's saying it gives it more substance. I'm doing this for Zoom. So, yeah. It's meaty for you vegans. I'm just kidding you, Mary. So Suki. Yes, and you will be getting the handouts. They are coming after the service that include also the sources. But for me, that was too much to bring out. But I just want to bring out something that you haven't, and that is that the word that we have here in that graphic, if we could see the graphic one more time, the word right in the middle is love. And that word is missing from our principles, which I didn't really realize until I was thinking this through. And I had meetings with ministers this week because we're all preparing for how we're going to introduce this and how we're all going to talk about it. And I really want you to feel like you have a say in all this. But when we were talking about the word love, we thought love really is such a mushy word. And it is really the stories. And what I thought of for this congregation is I thought of our Christmas Eve tradition, which has become talking with each other, telling the stories of kindness that we have received in our lives and the ways that we have, and I even asked this time to talk about the ways you may have brought kindness into the lives of others. Because as your minister, I have come to see that these acts of kindness, these acts of love within our community and towards the greater community, with empty bowls, with our different works that we do, with our food pantry, with our outreach to immigrant communities, those are at the center of who we are in this world. They are what people think of when I introduce myself as the minister of this congregation. They'll say, oh, you're the congregation that had the pantry all through the pandemic, or you're the congregation who does that marvelous empty bowls work. So I believe whatever happens to this is what I would love to take as an image, is that love is at that center. And then as we end, you're going to have the handouts that give more information, and you can really sit and read these carefully to yourselves. And I'd love it if we had people anxious to become delegates this year. So why did we sing about Eleanor Roosevelt at the beginning? What the heck did Eleanor Roosevelt have to do with this? Because she was living out her beliefs. She believed in racial equality, and she was driving those roads without the help of the FBI, without their protection. They might have wanted to shoot at her. Actually, they didn't like her at all, because she had a commitment, because she was living out her life. She is spreading courage even now, 65 years after she was picked up from that airport in Nashville and drove through the woods. I believe I wanted to bring her in because she is someone who is worthy of our respect, not because of the fancy words that she said, but because of the way she lived out the words she said. May we be that people in 50 years where they talk of the acts that we did, of how we lived out whatever ends up being the words that we espouse. Amen. And may it be so. And this is not the ending, because you are going to have a chance to talk. I think we will be handing those out. And those of you who are dying for coffee can go get a cup and bring it back in. And those of you who hate this talk can stay in the other social hall and speak of more, of lighter things. This song that we are going to sing, Be Ours a Religion, was written by a Unitarian pastor who was also part of my call to ministry, Theodore Parker, who lived out his values. They say that he harbored people who escaped enslavement, who came up north to Boston on the Underground Railway. He sometimes wrote his sermons, they say, with a pistol by his side, ready to defend his house guests. Be ours a religion which like sunshine goes everywhere. Let us rise in body or spirit and sing Theodore Parker into this space. And we will listen to the full song once before we start singing. And the composer in our congregation is urging me to tell you about the composer of this song, Tom Benjamin, who's a marvelous Unitarian Universalist composer. And so listen to the way that this music weaves in. Thank you. Be ours a religion which like sunshine goes everywhere, its temple all space, its shrine the good heart, its creed all truth, its ritual works of love. May we live out these words in our lives, and may we fully engage in this democratic process that we have in this marvelous faith community. May we be whole, and may you all be well. As many of you know, I'm heading off for a month of sabbatical in February, so I can come back all refreshed. And I will see you in March. And may you know that you are loved, and may you be well. Amen. And now, if you would like, oh, I'm sorry, but before we extinguish the chalice, I want those of you in the breakout rooms, because this will be your signal to go into breakout rooms, to talk about your experiences with becoming Unitarian Universalists. And I think Tracy might be able to give you a link to those. I know Elaine will be able to those, to the words that we spoke about today, to the new principles, the new article. So, yes. There's a, Marianne Clark is saying, there's a link on the adult faith page to a variety of sources on our website. So let us say these words together. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. And now everyone rise and wiggle again. And greet people, old friends you haven't seen in a while, or friends about to happen. Oh, somebody's really got a good thing going there. Woohoo, that's, whoa, yeah. Thank you.